afternoon, and welcome to the Senior Hour, which is sponsored by Providence Holy Cross Medical Center, IMAC Med Spa, and Comfort Keepers in Home Care. I'm Barbara Cochran with my co-host,
Dr. Thomas Polucki,
on your hometown station, 98.1 FM, AM 1220 KHTS. This is a show for, about, and information by seniors to giving information to enhance one's quality of life. And our guest this morning first is Melody Hallio. She's the program manager for Strokes and Diabetes program at Henry Mayo Newell Hospital. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, this is something new. Strokes and Diabetes program. How are the two connected?
Well, actually, diabetes is very connected to all cardiovascular and stroke disease. Diabetes is one of the leading risk factors for strokes, heart attacks, any kind of cardiovascular disease. So It ended up being a good combination of programs.
That's interesting. You learn something new every day, don't you? Good heavens. I had no idea that it was that connected.
Yeah, I think
very interesting.
Yeah, I think it's a really great combination that many hospitals haven't done before, but it's worked out in our favor to put them together.
So how long has this department been at Henry Mayo?
So they were previously separate departments.
Yeah.
The stroke program has been around since about 2009, 2010. Yeah. The diabetes program, I believe, has been around since 2015 or so. And then when I took over in 2018, they combined them both under myself.
Very interesting.
Yeah, so they're both in the short list of, they're both in the top 5 reasons that people are going to wind up in very, very serious trouble. Cancer, heart attack, heart disease is number 1. And then stroke and cancer follow a close second, and diabetes rounds out that top 5. And they're all interconnected. So the diabetes certainly is going to affect the ability of the blood vessels in the brain to do what they're supposed to do.
Exactly.
And that's how people get in trouble so frequently. But they all have these underlying connections as far as lifestyle is concerned. By the time they get to you, unfortunately, it's an emergency. It's an absolute life and death emergency. But prior to that is what I try to keep you out of business.
Which I appreciate.
If at all possible, with things that people can do every day. And we've been talking on the show for the past 20 years about what people can do to avoid these life and death emergencies. I mean, you provide an absolute... If I were to get that bad, I absolutely want the best care in that emergency situation. But what so many people don't realize, and what is not, and I hope this is part of your program, so I hope I'm not overstepping, what is not promoted in the message that goes out to people through any form of media is that these things are all avoidable most of the time.
Yep.
Most of the time. And you don't hear about that on the news. You don't read about that in the magazines unless it's a special novelty magazine, something like Prevention or something like that. But all of these things can be avoided most of the time. I mean, there are exceptions, but most of the time, simple things like what foods you choose, that you make it a priority to get some exercise in every day, that you make it a priority to drink enough water, that you make it a priority to get to bed at a certain time, that you make it a priority to do something to deal with the stress that we're constantly bombarded with.
Absolutely. It's interesting that you say that, because I do feel like it has in the past been a lack of preventative care focus. And I think a lot of people do focus on preventative care when it comes to heart disease and heart
Yeah.
attacks.
Yeah.
But actually, a heart attack and a stroke is the exact same thing, just in two different organs of the body.
Right.
And they're affected almost the same way by these prevention measures. So there really has been a push in recent years to try to focus more on prevention and awareness instead of treatment, which is a lot of what you're talking about. So
Yeah, I love it.
yeah.
So,
Great.
tell us a little bit about your program. I'm sorry to have hogged your space
Oh,
a little
gosh.
bit there, but please tell us about what is your specific program at Henry Mayo all about?
So I try to look at strokes on a whole, and I do try to do my best to look at what I can do to help with prevention. Obviously, the biggest role when it comes to the stroke portion is for treatment of the ones that do come in with
Sure.
strokes or TIAs, which are those mini strokes that we hear about.
Way too common.
Way too common,
yes.
unfortunately. Yes.
Absolutely too
Yes.
common.
But to speak to your point, the reason that we do focus so much on the prevention is an interesting statistic, which is so unfortunate, is that strokes are 80% preventable
Yeah.
in the United States, but they're the leading cause of adult
Disability.
And
Yeah.
it's just so unfortunate to think that we could possibly be preventing 80% of the adult disability with these
Now,
strokes.
does that occur mostly with seniors?
Of course, the
People are
largest
getting up-
population,
yeah.
is seniors. But I will tell you, it's been happening in younger and younger populations for different reasons. So it's definitely not exclusive to seniors anymore. But they definitely do make our highest population of the ones that do come in.
And there are different reasons for different age groups, but
Well,
it
that's
all
probably
comes
true.
down to the same. And the reason that we have you here is this is Stroke Awareness Month.
It is.
And the
Yes.
message in the general media, and of course we're going to address that, but the general message in the media is how to recognize a stroke in progress and what to immediately do about it. And they've come up with this cute acronym, FAST, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So I don't want to steal your thunder. So please tell us about exactly that. How do you know if, even if you're not aware of it, how would you know that somebody you care about might be having a stroke?
So a lot of what we do for Stroke Awareness Month is hopefully bring to the forefront what to watch out for. And so it's kind of the awareness and the prevention piece we already kind of talked about. But the stroke awareness is really knowing what to look out for. And there is an acronym. And actually, it's starting to move towards a little bit extended acronym of BFAST.
Oh, okay.
So BEFAST. And so we've added these two letters on to capture a couple more symptoms that weren't being captured by that. But yes, the biggest things that we look for, and I'll just go through the acronym. The BEEF stands for balance, and that's one that is not normally recognized as a stroke symptom. It comes from the back of the brain area, and we're trying to bring more awareness to these strokes that happen in the back of the brain. So patients who have a stroke in the back of their brain can have this balance issue where they can't walk coordinated, or they tend to lean to one side.
Like roadside sobriety test.
It really does look like a drunk person.
Yep.
It's a very similar discoordination. So then the E is also another symptom from these back side strokes. It's for the eyes. And so that's been added to look out for vision changes, loss of vision, blurry vision, anything that affects the eyes that could be abnormal could also be a part of one of these back of the brain or posterior strokes. So that's why we added that B and E in recent years to try to capture those posterior strokes that were being missed because they're not as normal of stroke symptoms that you would think. The F and the FAS kind of go back to those stroke symptoms that are more common. The F is for the face. So when you think about strokes, you're going to see a lot of things happening on one side of the body. So what happens with the face is you can have this drooping, but it would be for one side of the face. Generally, it can be seen with the mouth, where one side of the face at the mouth level is drooping and the other side is staying normal. That's a significant symptom for stroke. And then the A is arms, but but it could also be legs, arms or legs, that one side is weaker than the other. So one of the quick tests that we do for stroke is to put both arms up in the air straight ahead and see if one arm is kind of falling worse than the other. That does also apply for legs, but we couldn't get the L in the acronym there.
Right.
So either legs or arms, any weakness, or it also can be numbness on one side. The S is for speech, loss of speech, not finding the correct words, slurred speech. Those are all symptoms of strokes as well. And then the T is really for time, because when it comes to strokes, very similarly to heart attacks, time is of the absolute essence. And this is why the Awareness Month is so important, because the faster that somebody gets in with stroke symptoms, the more treatment options we do have. And that's why we really encourage people to call 911 if they're having stroke symptoms, not try to drive themselves or loved ones to the hospital, because every minute really counts on that end. And the faster they get there, the better treatment options we have and the better outcomes are associated with these patients with the faster treatment. So
Sure. Yeah. So the clot is more common.
Correct.
And the bleed is more dangerous. It can be devastating.
Absolutely.
Instantly. So there's not a whole lot you can always do about that one. But the clot is the most common one. And I know the immediate medical emergency is the stroke. Either you have a compromised blood flow one way or the other in the brain tissue, and that needs to be dealt with immediately. But much more common, way too common, are these TIAs that you talk about. Unfortunately, I've witnessed them in real time. And I've had to make the call, like, get this person out of my immediate sphere and get them to care, because it can progress from there. What I have witnessed is not so much the slurred speech, but the inability to formulate the words. Like, I've seen that. Like, all of a sudden you're talking to someone, and then all of a sudden they're like really working hard to talk to you, and they can't answer your questions. And as soon as I see that shift, I'm like,
Absolutely.
Yeah, this is not the way it's supposed to be. And they don't even know.
Right.
Sometimes they're sort of aware that something's not right, but I'm like, okay, yeah, no, that's not okay. I'm glad to hear about the arm thing, because I used to do grab my hand. I don't know if that has changed recently, or it's been a long time since I've been in schools.
The grip, I mean, we still do, the grips are still part of a strength assessment. Absolutely. We even still use it the paramedics out in the field still use grip assessments. But really the telling signs, sometimes there can be an overall more higher level weakness of the arm and not the finer motor weakness of the hand. So we kind of will do the arm drift and the grip, but the defining symptom is really that arm drift. That doesn't mean to say if somebody has a weaker grip on one side or not to treat it the same way, but that's just our easy way to teach everyone to catch either or.
Yeah. Yeah, no, great to know.
That's interesting, because I have occupational and physical therapists come to my home because of what I've gone through. I've beaten cancer twice here, but I'm still in the sort of recovery program. So the doctor has recommended the occupational therapist come over and the physical therapist. And Ron is the occupational therapist, and he's constantly having me pull on these rubber bands and doing this with them and up and down and all that kind of stuff, and make sure that I grip it. I mean, really grip it.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the physical therapist, I have to get up and walk across the room along the side of the sink in the kitchen, and do all kinds of leg ups and sit downs and all kinds of stuff. But it's definitely helped my strength, especially doing the hand exercises, and that's so important.
Yeah. Well, last year
Absolutely.
we did an episode on grip strength and how it's becoming
Yes.
a very important measuring device of overall health and what that actually means to the general population. We measured you and you're off the charts. Like even after everything you've been through, you've got a very strong grip strength.
Yeah.
So I'm not too concerned about
Shout
that.
out to Ron for
Yeah,
that.
that's right.
No, it was before Ron.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
it was. But I still use the walker.
Yeah.
I don't trust myself.
Yeah. So that comes more into play about what you were talking about with the balance and the cerebellar and the occipital lobe of the brain. The vision and balance are critical. Those are vital, especially even without stroke. It's very important for the entire senior population to keep an eye on their balance, because that is one of the most dangerous
standing up
things.
straight using these things.
Sure.
So many times when I see older women and men over like this, because these handlebars have not been pulled up so that it allows them to stand up.
Yeah.
And that's what my kids have done with this. They've pulled it up so that I stand up straight, because that's critical. It really is.
Okay, Melanie, what is happening at Henry Mayo in your department for Stroke Awareness Month?
So we do some activities. We come out to talk to everyone here every year on May. We do an internal event where it does involve visitors and other people who happen to be there that day, but we do an awareness little event set up inside the hospital where we have a banner that everyone signs to commit to learning all the symptoms and the processes of how we handle those in the hospital. Because there's patients that have a stroke, but there's also might be a visitor who might have symptoms, so that's really what we do internally. We do some giveaways, we do a raffle, we kind of make it fun, we get everybody engaged. And then I also go out to some of the senior centers to do some education with them as well. And I really focus on what we're talking about here, prevention and then awareness, how we can be, how everyone can be able to help others in those situations and recognize it in themselves.
Sure.
We do the community health fair as well that is put on through Henry Mayo. That's not necessarily just in May, but it's put on quarterly. We hand out even children's coloring books so that they know and they can be aware if something's happening to their family. And it has coloring pages kind of showing what the symptoms are. So we really try to make it as comprehensive as possible. And, we bring, Henry Mayo magnets that show the symptoms and what to expect. So we really try to get it out there. Everyone loves the magnets. I'm hoping they're up in lots of people's houses now on their refrigerators, just as a reminder. So
yeah, more people aware of the situation is always a good thing. There's a saying, it takes a community, but sometimes it takes a 5-year-old who actually knows what the signs are to make that 911 call. If that 5-year-old is being babysit by grandma or great grandma, and that's the only person that has any kind of, eyes on the situation, it would be beneficial if they knew what to look for too. And in a way that they understand that, this is a time that I dial 911.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's been a big push for just awareness even at the child level as well, just to, for that reason.
Makes a lot of sense. It really does.
Yeah, because of what he said. Some people don't know that they're actually having a stroke because the brain is such an interesting, complicated organ. So, it's quite exciting to get the children involved even at that level.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, the earlier they learn, the better off they are. In all everywhere from the time they're 5 or 6 up until they're 19, 20, 21.
Sure.
As long as they are aware, something's going on.
Exactly.
I need to call somebody.
Yep.
Or I need to go across the street and get a neighbor or something like that.
So that's the emergency side of the situation, which I think is critically important. But it's also a opportunity for them to avoid that in their lives. Like you said, 80% of the time, it doesn't have to go like that. It doesn't have to go like that with diabetes. It doesn't have to go like that with stroke. And a lot of the time, it doesn't have to go like that with cancer or heart disease either. And that covers like the top 5 killers. The
Absolutely.
top 5 killers in America, 80% of the time are avoidable.
Absolutely.
And unfortunately, all we see in almost every form of media is, well, when it's an emergency, here's what we do about it.
Exactly. And so here we are trying
Yay.
to change that out in the community and
that's
get
the
a little
purpose
better.
Of this show.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely the purpose of this show. So once again, Melody, please, when you said we have an event at the hospital where we do this and you explained it, when, where, how, give us the details on that event, please.
So we are doing it on Tuesday, May 23rd. It's going to be in the lobby. It's going to be in the tower lobby. So that new building, there's a big lobby for that new building that was built. And we will be there from 11:30 to 1:30. And we will just be getting out there to everyone that walks by, because that is the elevator for the cafeteria that we've strategically put it there.
That's
smart.
a good idea.
Yes.
Very good idea.
And I know a lot of people, so I'll kind of yell their name and pull them in, and we'll get everybody excited. And always, Starbucks cards never hurt. So that's where we'll be from 11:30 to 1:30.
May 23rd, 11:30 to 1:30, Henry Mayo in the Tower Building. Is it, am I right in saying that this is a stroke awareness event that
Correct.
You're holding there? May 23rd, 11:30 to 1:30. That's lunchtime.
Exactly.
Just for lunch.
So how do we get in touch with you to find out more?
So you can go on the Henry Mayo website, at www.henrymayo.com. There is tabs for programs and services, and under there you can find the stroke program with my contact info and phone number.
Terrific.
Yes.
Awesome.
Well, it's great having you here. That's a lot of information that we consumed in 20 minutes?
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here, and I just love being able to help serve the community. It's definitely a passion of mine. So
that's wonderful. Thank you again for coming.
Thank you.
I'm Barbara Cochran with my co-host, Dr. Thomas Polucki, on your hometown station, 98.1 FM, AM 1220 KHTS. Welcome back to the Senior Hour. I'm Barbara Cochran with my co-host, Dr. Thomas Polucki, on your hometown station, 98.1 FM, AM 1220 KHTS. And what a treat we have as our guest now, Bradley Gross of Santa Clarita Grocery. It's good to see you again. It's been a long time.
It has. It's great
For
to
me,
see
it
you,
has,
Barbara.
because I didn't go to the Home and Garden show. So,
Right.
But I understand that was a big success.
Yes, it was topped out. So it's good to see the recovery after COVID.
Yes.
That it's right back where it should be, so they could only grow from here.
That's wonderful.
And this is the first time I've been on with Dr. Polucki, so what a treat.
That's right.
There you go.
That's
Partner
right.
and friend of Santa Clarita Grocery. Both of you are, which is pretty remarkable.
Yeah, it's such a great service that you're providing over there. I'm not sure that everybody knows about that. So I'd like to at first introduce you as CEOs.
We're all volunteers. I'm one of the lead volunteers, but I'm the executive director of
Executive Director of Santa Clarita Grocery. And if you could, in as precisely a description as possible, what goes on over there?
Right. So we're a 501c3. We're under the parent company of the Santa Clarita Coalition. And the coalition does disaster relief for our city. They are the go-to. They've been for 18 years. Any
Has
tragic...
it been that long?
Yes.
18?
And any of the big... It's a tough charity because it deals with tragedies and disasters,
Sure.
but they are the go-to when something happens. The funds that go into that charity are dollar for dollar, unlike like a GoFundMe that takes 8%. This is just buck for buck, so it goes a little bit further. But we're under that parent company, and we handle the humanitarian relief side of things. So that's why it was such a good fit. So Santa Clarita Grocery, we're all volunteer, and we pick up from all the major food retailers in the Santa Clarita Valley. And it's strictly for the Santa Clarita Valley. So we don't really go outside of those boundaries. And we collect tons of food every week from Costco, Vons, Ralph's, Sprouts, not Stater Brothers, but I'm trying to think all the majors, but multiple of the stores. So all three Ralphs and both Albertsons and so forth. And then we have teams that go through and intake all those donations, get them set up for our supply chain for distribution. So we distribute 3 times a week, Monday night, Wednesday night, Saturday morning. And what that distribution is people in need, whether it be we deal with the KIK group, which FYI, I'm sorry, it's foster youth that have just aged out. So we're looking at 18-year-olds all the way up to seniors that are just having challenges, making ends meet or whatnot. And we have a proxy program where people can come and pick up for a senior if they know one. So you get a week's worth of groceries, you get a shop once a week, you drive up and you drive away. And the young youth of our junior highs and high schools are the ones that will load your groceries and serve you with a big smile on your face.
That's outstanding. So I have witnessed this. We have worked with people together, and it is an amazing service that you're providing there. It's hard to live in one of the most affluent societies in the world, in one of the most affluent cities in the world, and come across an impossible situation where all of a sudden you can't put food on the table.
Right.
And it happens a lot more to a lot more people than anybody wants to acknowledge.
Right. I mean, even the last 2 years with the supply chain issues in our country, and also the cost of food going up, we've had a big increase of just regular families needing assistance.
Yep.
And so what's been so wonderful is that this is up and running, and we partner with them. Originally, when we launched Santa Clarita Grocery, we had a different name, and it was a charity-ish name, and it didn't work well with human dignity.
Sure.
Thinking, well, I'm not bad enough to have to get food from a charity or this or that. So we changed the name and rebranded to Santa Clarita Grocery. Just come to the grocery store and get your groceries.
There you go.
And it was enough to change the whole trajectory of it by just moving the needle just that much, right?
Yeah.
So we have an old pickup truck. It's our logo, and it's like the old Newhall grocery store. That's kind of the vibe of it. So it's a beautiful opportunity for those that are just needing help.
Yeah. And any one of us can wind up in that situation a little too easily these days.
Right. That's so true.
Yeah. So, all right. So, any special events or programs or anything on the calendar? I know you're pinch hitting for us today.
Right.
And we appreciate you dropping everything.
Oh, you got it.
Coming, a couple miles over to come in and be our guest today. And we love that we're able to promote your not a charity, to promote your service, your community service. Right. So is there anything that the community can do to help?
Yeah, well, the way it's structured, we're all volunteers. There's about 10 of us that have little bells around our neck. If you've ever been around sheep, it's the ones with the bell that the people follow, right?
I've been up there, yeah.
So we carry responsibilities in different ways. Because to have the machine with all pistons firing, you need people that own responsibility. So we have 10 people that own responsibility, and we're talking daily responsibility as a volunteer.
Yep.
But that's how it gets done. It's a real tribute to who our community is and the quality of volunteers that we have here. It's the only way we could get that done. But being all volunteer, We don't have big government grants or anything like
Sure.
that. So, I mean, one of the biggest ways that people could help if they felt so inclined was $10 will feed a family of 5 for a week with our program. $20 feeds 2 families. If
Right.
people felt inclined to just take that much and make it a monthly commitment, it would be a huge help for us.
Yeah. And that may be significant to somebody on a fixed budget.
Right, right.
But for pretty much anybody else who's listening right now, when you think
Right.
about it, that is a drive-through at Starbucks.
Right, right,
To feed a family in need for a week
right.
is the equivalent of what you would spend for a cup of coffee these days.
Right, a coffee and a little something, something, right?
Yeah.
So that would be a huge help for us, but it goes a long way.
Yeah.
And you'd be surprised. You go away with a week's worth of groceries, and we've been very fortunate to have. Oh my gosh.
Barb steps up on air.
Barbara just purchased 2 families
No.
worth.
No, that's for somebody else. I don't need it.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, right. But what's been neat is the quality of food that we're getting and contributions.
Yeah.
You think of what a food charity would be, and it's wilted lettuce, canned goods that are like
Dinged.
January
Yeah,
2023 that are
Right.
dented. I'm telling you, June 8th, in fact, the LDS Church, who has partnered, one of our partners, they're bringing a 40-foot truckload of
Wow.
canned good, dried good, that those dates, it's fresh right out of their canneries and their farms. So you're looking at the quality of just the canned good, dried goods. You're looking at the dates on it as 2025, 2026.
Right.
And that's on that side of things. We bring in about 800 pounds of meat a week
Wow.
from our retailers. And
So you did touch on that real quick, but I would really like to give a specific shout out to who is doing this in this community. Like the stores that are involved are once again.
right. So Costco, and we pick up 2 days from them a week. Both Walmarts, we pick up multiple times a week. All 3 Ralphs, we pick up multiple times a week. All 3 Albertsons, we pick up multiple times a week. And our only Sprouts we have here, we pick up multiple times a week.
So you can feel better about when you do go shopping in those places that these are the people
They're
that
givers.
support our
Yes.
community. They don't just exchange your money for their product.
That's correct. And then the quality of groceries, you're getting a really balanced, it's very informed on what you're getting. You're getting bakery and breads. That also includes cakes, cupcakes, that kind of thing. Canned goods, dried goods. So you get your pasta sauce, your peanut butter, your jam. Then you get your produce, which we get just an amazing selection. One of our partners, I shouldn't say them on air, but they tend to overbuy on bananas so we can keep our guests having their potassium each week, right? So they have great produce, and then that's fruits and vegetables. And then we have our meats. So we get both beef and chicken and seafood as well. We have probably a 3% Asian community of guests that come weekly to us. And then we have our deli. So you have sandwiches and sauces and all kinds of things. So when you look at it from a balanced diet standpoint, you in particular could probably have more insight to say about this, but it's 5 real food areas that they are getting with every time they come and pick up their groceries.
Outstanding.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, I've had a box from you before.
That's right.
And-
She had to try it out.
Yes.
It was very sweet. It really was that you would take the time to come and observe it and see how it's going.
Yeah, and I took some stuff out to cars at the time I
Yeah.
did it, which was 2 or 3 years ago.
It
at
was.
least. Yes.
I want to say it was pre-COVID,
Yes, it was.
right?
Definitely was.
Yeah.
But what a process that goes on up there. It's unbelievable. Have you been there?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Wow. It's unbelievable. And the quality of the food was so big, and outstanding.
The portions,
you know?
yeah. And so we have a calculation. So we have on our little check-in slips, the grocery basically shopping slips. They have a number on it for our runners. Our runners are the young middle school, high school kids that take it and deliver the groceries. But there's a number on there, and that's the cone number that's on the car. And then there is a number of how many people are in the family, adults and children. So they know the portions to take. And so we definitely hit the mark. There's also we have several new moms that have little kids. And there's a volunteer that refuses to be mentioned, but every week she buys all the different sizes of diapers and wipes.
Bless her heart.
And drops them off. And that is how we are able to serve our young moms that come as our guests.
Yeah, and for those who don't remember how incredibly expensive. that process is, that is huge. That is huge.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
It's insane.
It is.
It is insane. But it's still better than I'm old enough to remember diaper service.
Right.
So
washing your diapers.
That's a better option. But the cost for a new single mom who's not getting the support that they need. That
Right.
is such a gift.
Right. So, but when you look at the cost of eggs they're getting a little bit better now, but they were just about $1 a piece.
Yep.
I saw the funniest cartoon. It was an auction going on, and it was a dozen eggs.
Right.
And then the gavel hit down. That was the cartoon. Sold for $1,000.
That's insane. Yeah, it's insane out there.
So this right now, it's kind of turned a corner, and we're really now seeing a lot of just people in our community that we have the privilege to walk with during this challenging time.
Amazing. Yeah. So can you come back after the break?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah, you'll
okay.
Stay here for us.
All right.
That's good.
Brad,
That's
from Santa Clarita Grocery, we'll be right back. KHTS FM 98.1 AM 1220, HometownStation.com, the Senior Hour.
Welcome back to the Senior Hour. I'm Barbara Cochran with my co-host, Dr. Thomas Polucki, on your hometown station, 98.1 FM, AM 1220, KHTS. And we've been talking to Bradley Gross of the Santa Clarita Grocery. And my goodness, what an organization that is.
Yep.
Feeds a lot of people.
Yeah.
It really does.
So for the past 3 years, we've been told so much about what we can't do.
Right.
By everybody. And it's so refreshing to see an organization that is all volunteer, regardless of politics, regardless of opinions, regardless of what's going on in the media. It's all about what you can do.
That's right.
And I'd love to hear the details, who, how, what you're accomplishing over there, especially over these past 3 years, which has been a challenge for everyone.
Right. So this year marks our 5th anniversary, and it's hard for all of us to believe that we've been doing this 5 years, because it's not an easy, when you come to volunteer, it's not an easy ride. You actually work.
Sure.
And by the end of your shift, it's like, you're like, whew, boy, that was a good day's work. But dimes for donuts, what your time vested is you see the fruit of that. So we're currently, just to understand the scope and scale of it, we're serving 1,200-ish families monthly, just from our little warehouse. But in addition to that, when we launched Santa Clarita Grocery, we came up with this thing called our insurance policy for enough supply for whatever demand we face. So we went after all the possible food we could go after. And it's very challenging getting on the list to be a one that you're donated to.
Sure.
Right? So anyhow, we in addition to what the families we're serving here, we also every Tuesday and Thursday distribute back out to the community to a whole variety of groups. So one is the community center off Railroad. Every week, 2 or 3 times, we drop a lot of food off for their families, which is probably hitting 600 families there by what we're providing. And a few other, but even the Newhall Food Bank, when we have overage, we call them up and we go make a drop to them, which is right around the corner here.
Yeah, right around the corner, and there's always someone there.
Right.
Always someone there.
So we just like to work with whoever will work with us, right? But I think the magic, that's what I would call it, to Santa Clarita Grocery is there's probably people of every different faith that volunteer there, okay? There's people from every kind of political view that volunteer there. And the beautiful thing, or like I said, the magic of it is everybody leaves their stuff at the door and they're there for one reason, and we've all huddled. It's like looking at a beehive, and these are all different people that normally never socially would be in even in a room together, not to mention teaming up and going after something. And when they get into their role there, we team up together. It's like I was saying, it's the good old can-do spirit. What you can get done if you leave your stuff at the door is really remarkable.
Yeah, and so refreshing, especially with every form of media's attempt to divide. Right. And to hear that this is a service that is all about bringing together and serving.
Right.
And it's not one particular politics, one particular religion, one particular anything.
Right.
It's just about let's try to make things better.
Yeah, what you can do when you team up, right?
And you were rewarded for that too.
Right.
Your organization nominated you for Man of the Year.
Right.
Even though you didn't get it, it was still an honor to stand up on that stage with so many other men and women, possible men and women of the year.
Right.
It really was.
Right. I think there were 15 men nominated, and we'll touch on
and
this
there were
when we come back.
women.
17 women. But
that's amazing. It's
really
wonderful.
Is. Right.
It really is. And it used to be such a secret. I mean, an absolute secret. Nobody knew who was nominated.
Well, very few people who are nominated for Man of the Year are going out and pounding their chest about it. We have a past Woman of the Year here.
Yes.
And a nomination of this year.
Yes.
And
I got mine in 1983, which was a long time ago.
Yeah. Well
and
deserved.
Now it's 2023.
Yep.
I mean, that's 40 years.
Yep.
Right.
Am I counting right?
Right.
Absolutely deserved. Brad, thank you so much for your service at Santa Clarita Grocery. You've been listening to the Senior Hour, KHTS FM 98.1, AM 1220, hometown.station.com. We're sponsored by Providence Holy Cross, IMAC Med Spa, and Comfort Keepers. Now go out and enhance your quality of life.